not have known the distinction that this store received with Ford and Lincoln this year. We received the President's Award for 2023 for Ford for the 5th year in a row. We also received it for Lincoln for the first year. And I tell you, those awards don't come easily. It all boils down to taking care of the customers and having the vehicles you want in stock for you to buy.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC. Be a part of the conversation.
We can't fix America's debt by starving its people.
Have your say.
One shooting after another, and we're doing nothing to solve it?
This is WSIC. News Talk Now.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. 4 o'clock hour here at WSIC. If you're a 9 to 5er, we got 53 minutes, 24 seconds until you hit that 5 o'clock bell. And I'm so glad you're spending this final hour with us here on Dollars and Cents as we talk about all things economic and financial. Now, you know, we're talking all kinds of things. We're talking about companies, talking about investment strategies, probably looking at specific investments, some in a positive light, maybe others in a not so positive light. I promise you we're going to do that here today. A lot going on, always a lot going on, I feel like. Certainly going to be touching on a lot of the hot button items today. But in doing so, you recall, as a previous listener to Dollars and Cents, that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're talking on these things, and we're gonna have some slants to them. I have biases, right? And then certain things look a little more positive, other things not so positive. We're going to talk about a couple of bankruptcies, not exactly the highlight of the moment. Important for you to know, but not the highlight of the moment. But again, in doing so, that nothing here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Everybody's situation is unique. We strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, to your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation and to see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com. northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us an email address, a phone number. Happy to address your specific financial situation one-on-one there. You know, I can't do that on the air. I got to caveat everything, right? Not a recommendation. Buy, sell, or hold. You probably only hear me say that about, 8, 10, a dozen times today as we're looking through things here. But happy to talk with you one-on-one offline, again, at North Main Financial. .com. All right, let's get into it. What's hot? What's hot? The weather's hot. I mean, my gosh, if you are in any of these hot parts of the country right now, which I think is most of the country, I guess if you're in the upper Midwest, and by up, now I'm not going to say Midwest, upper West. I mean, if you're in Montana right now, northern Idaho, I think you might have a break from it at this point. Other than that, everybody is on fire. I mean, it is unbelievable how warm it is out there right now. New England to Florida to Central California, Northern California struggling with wildfires again. Golly, it is warm. So I'm going to start by saying that's what's on right now. But insofar as the financial and economic universe is concerned, let's go ahead and dive into some things here. This is a big one, and this is big because it affects so many of our clients, so many folks with whom we speak. I was just literally attending a meeting with regards to some of the nuances with regards to Social Security planning and how to make decisions with regards to it. It affects everybody at some level. I mean, it's going to affect you, or it's going to affect a spouse. It's going to affect children if you're in a space where parents unfortunately pass away prematurely. So, I mean, there are all kinds of things that come into play when we're talking about Social Security. Here, I'm not talking about anything quite so complex, but it is important. And certainly if you are a Social Security recipient, you definitely want to pay attention to what I'm going to say here next. Social Security Cost of Living Adjustment, sometimes used with the acronym COLA, C-O-L-A, Cost of Living Adjustment, every single year. There is an adjustment made in the positive. Thankfully, we don't regress when it comes to those kinds of things, which is good. And there's a cost of living adjustment in the positive with regards to Social Security income for current recipients. Meaning for those folks who are receiving current Social Security income, there's a cost of living adjustment each year. Now, without getting too granular and maybe putting you right to sleep, there is an algorithm that goes together that primarily uses pieces of the CPI or Consumer Price Index in determining what the cost of living adjustment is going to be year over year. Now, The official announcement comes out around October, mid-October, late October, but we've been around long enough watching how the algorithm goes together. We generally have an idea as data points start to line up about where things are going to land. So this is not a hard and fast. This is definitely not the official announcement. But when we have these kind of things that we know from experience here at North Main Financial, and we know it's going to be approximately in this range, I like to share it with you. I like so that you know approximately where things are going to land here in January of the coming year. Looks like we're going to be right around 2.5%. That's 2.5% roughly. That's not official data yet. That's going to be official here come October, but roughly relative to how the algorithm is put together, we're looking at probably about a 2.5% adjustment or increase to Social Security income come January of 2025. Golly, saying that number, 2025 next year. Holy smokes. Now, you're probably not going to believe this, but I remember with great clarity years that started with a 19. So when we're talking about 2025, holy mackerel, just saying that out loud. Unbelievable. All right. Anyhow, so looking at cost of living adjustment when it comes to Social Security, looking at in the neighborhood of about a 2.5% increase here come January. There are going to be a couple of other data points that go into that algorithm before that computation is complete. Right around mid-October is when we're going to hear from the Social Security Administration, SSA, and they're going to give us the final word with regards to that. But I want you to have that affect so many people, especially, again, not only folks who are receiving it, folks who are planning to receive it, all those kinds of things. It's going to affect all of us in some way. And one of the questions that we get, spend a moment on this here before we have to cut to break. Spend a moment on this because I get these questions all the time. Had a couple of them this morning. That's why I'm going to bring them up here. Is Social Security going to be around whenever it's time for me to collect? That's a great question. I mean, it's a very appropriate kind of thought process, especially when we're thinking about it in terms of being able to provide income or be an income source for us in retirement. A lot of considerations that go into the choices when it comes to when to take Social Security, when it's appropriate to take Social Security. Do you take a spousal income? What if you are divorced? What if your spouse has passed away? A lot of things that go into that dynamic in thinking about when it's appropriate to take Social Security. Definitely not making any recommendations here. Everybody's situation is unique. Very important to get some good advice or at least get yourself up to speed when understanding how to take Social Security income. But with regards to the viability of the fund itself. So let's do some real quick, macro, high-level kind of thought processes associated with Social Security. You're looking at about 2034-ish right now. So let's say about a decade from right now, when the outflows from Social Security are scheduled to be greater than the inflows into the fund. So I'll say it this way. The outflows from Social Security are scheduled to be greater than the inflows into the fund. What happens there, pretty simple math, is that we're going to start to decrease the balance fairly rapidly. Now, a lot of variables can happen here over the course of the next 10 years. But while 10 years sounds like a lot of time, we actually need to make some decisions fairly quickly in order to change the direction on the ship. So what I say to folks insofar as my observational experience is concerned, and certainly we keep connected with a lot of folks in Washington, D.C., who are connected with the SSA, who are on Capitol Hill, giving their thoughts and insights, especially insofar as their professional engagement with it is concerned, that probably we're going to be in a space where we're going to have Social Security taxes increase and or we're going to have future benefits decrease. I'm going to say it again. Probably we're going to have some combination of a future tax increase, meaning Social Security taxes increase, the primary source of Social Security taxes coming from W-2 income or earned income, also from self-employment income, and probably a combination of that with a reduction in future benefits. Does that mean that if you're receiving benefits that you're not going to be receiving them anymore? I don't see that happening. Don't see that happening at all. And I'll say that just from this standpoint, no politician on the planet wants to be the one holding the bag if that kind of thing would happen. I'm going to talk more about it here as we come back from break. We're going to take a few seconds here to hear from our sponsors. You're listening to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial here on WSIC.
More of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi is coming up on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, the break in humidity was nice, but it definitely was short. It's already working its way back in as we go into this evening. Overnight, a mostly clear sky. It gets muggy again. Temperatures fall into the mid-70s. Outlying spots and farms could even see low 70s waking up Friday morning. Not really going to end our drought, but a chance for a couple of showers or downpours, even thunderstorm possible on our Friday. Mostly cloudy sky, high temperatures in the mid and upper 80s. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like Serenity Now Massage Therapy.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Thursday, July 11th, Untethered Soul makes their Langtree Live debut. The band is a unique, creative, soulful reimagination of the music that shaped American culture. Grab your chairs and head to Langtree in Mooresville for the 7 p.m. performance of Untethered Soul with frontman Nick Prestia. This Friday, Trailers of the East Coast in Mocksville present the Wilson Strong Cookout. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., stop by for a barbecue plate and sides in support of Matt Wilson. We'll see you at Trailers of the East Coast in Mocksville this Friday to support Matt with the Wilson Strong Cookout. On Friday, Envision rocks Liberty Park in downtown Mooresville. This first-class dynamic vocal group delivers a high-energy stage show complete with professional choreography and silky smooth harmonies. Liberty Park in downtown Mooresville welcomes you to the Envision concert on Friday night. The Kane Center for the Arts Week 5 of summer camps begins Monday, July 15th. Morning and afternoon camps for ages 4 to 15 include ceramics, drawing, painting, mosaic, mixed media art, and more. The Davidson Community Players present Footloose the Musical on August 8th, 9th, and 10th. For more information on summer camp programs and the theater schedule and tickets, visit canearts.org. That's C-A-I-N arts.org. The Cookout Summer Shootout Series heats up the track each week at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The 10-race series night number 8 is on Tuesday, July 16th. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for tickets, details, and information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Now more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, Football Reference. These are the dog days of summer. Yeah, we're going to talk about sports here for a minute. I have to. I got Joe Berg on the desk here, working the board here, and he's our official sports director here at WSIC. Knows more about sports than I have forgotten. So I am going to talk about football here for a couple of minutes. Dog days of summer. This is when it hurts, Joe. I mean, this is the rough time because this is when we're starting to get into thinking about training camp and the hot days. And I can't imagine, I don't care how much of a professional you are, I can't imagine there is one professional football player saying, boy, I can't wait to get into that. I mean, I don't even want to be outside when I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, let alone in all that gear. Unbelievable. So it's going to be fun. Coming up here in a couple of weeks, we're going to have training camp. We're going to get into the football season. You're going to hear me talk more about it. I mean, you've heard me talk about it all year. Of course, you're going to hear me talk more about it as we get into the actual season itself. So thank you so much for hanging with us here. Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. Just before we were going to break there, talking a little bit about Social Security. And I do spend some time on that. That's intentional. And it's because it affects so many people. If it's not a part of your decision and thought process right now, I promise you at some point it will be. And I said just before we went to break there, because I get this question a lot, an awful lot. I've had it, like I said, I had it this morning. I've had it probably a couple times this week at least, in one way, shape, or form about whether Social Security is going to be viable, i.e. is it going to be around when it's time for me to collect. And as we went to break there, my look at it, my study of it, my opinion also, so this is subjective, there's nothing that's concrete about this, but as we're looking at where Social Security is, in terms of the fund itself. Again, I told you that outflows are going to supersede inflows algorithmically in about 10 years. So we're going to start to have that be a spend down kind of scenario for the fund. And then as we're looking at it in terms of what that can mean then, okay, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, what does that mean? Do we just keep going in a straight line? I don't think so. My opinion, this is my opinion in looking at it here. I think that there's going to be some combination of an increase, future increase in Social Security taxes, meaning increases into the amount that's contributed into the fund, and some level of decrease in future promised benefits. Now, for folks who are receiving their benefits or who are scheduled to receive their benefits in the near term, I have zero concern that you're going to receive those benefits. None at all, actually, when we're looking at it. And I can say it, yes, from a mathematical standpoint, and I'm chuckling here because I'm actually looking at it from a political standpoint. I don't think there's one politician on the planet, or certainly not one politician in all of Capitol Hill, that wants to be the one who is casting the vote to reduce or eliminate Social Security income. I truly don't. I can't imagine. I mean, if there is, then I hope they have a short desire to be in Washington D.C. because I can't imagine that they're going to be one who's reelected at any time soon if that would happen. So again, looking at it, anticipate that there's going to be some amount of increase in Social Security taxes, reduction of future benefits for folks who are not yet receiving those benefits there. But again, the real genesis of that, looking at it, cost of living adjustment insofar as we're looking at it right now, probably right around 2.5% coming into January. All right, let's keep going. We're going to pivot a little bit here. We talk a lot about food on Dollars and Cents. And probably one of the same reasons why we talk about football, because I like to eat. And it's something we like to talk about here, and we like to do at WSIC as well. Let's talk about this brand. This is not a publicly traded brand. This is actually a brand out of Isle of Palms in South Carolina. And it's not publicly traded, not a publicly traded company. Unfortunately, had to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because they had an amazing, I would say pretty remarkable kind of foray into the NFL, into the NBA with regards to being one of the drinks that was the drink of, or the game day drink of, and that's actually was the name of the brand, Game Day Vodka and spiked canned flavored seltzers, part of a group called Never Forget Brands based out of Isle of Palms. They had to declare bankruptcy, and and part of their or a collection of their creditors includes the NFL and some of their subsidiaries because of ways in which they just were not selling enough. So even though they had those kinds of relationships, which I think just about for any retail provider or any kind of provider of any kind would want to have some kind of relationship with the NFL because of their reach and brand, unfortunately didn't work. And so they had to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I'm looking at them. I'm looking. I've not had Game Day vodka, and I've not had spiked canned vodka seltzers either. But certainly because of how popular those kinds of things are right now, very surprised that kind of thing came through. But when I saw it, certainly because of the local connection here down in Isle of Palms in South Carolina, very, very interesting to see that come across there, and be interesting to see if somebody else makes a play insofar as the sports leagues are concerned, and to see if somebody may want to fill that gap with what they were able to do there over at Never Forget Brands, unfortunately having to go through a reorganization, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Let's pivot a little bit here. Airlines. Golly, if you have gone to an airport recently, holy smokes. Now, we happen to be close to the Charlotte airport here at WSIC. It is a hub for American Airlines. Holy mackerel. Now, I also got to be fair. I got to be fair to our airport folks. We're going through a huge update, expansion, renovation right now. I mean, it feels like for a frequent traveler like me, it's been going on for about 40 years. That's not true, but it feels like that. It feels like it's been going on for a very long time. And I do believe that once it's all done, it's going to be more efficient. It's going to be new. There's going to be greater space, which is good because we are shoving passengers through Charlotte at a rate that literally is historical. I mean, it's amazing the number of passengers that are moving through Charlotte because it's a hub, especially on their way to other places. But the reason why I'm bringing up airlines here, I want to talk about, not that I want to dwell on this, but I think it's important. I think this kind of data that I'm going to give you here, not an indication of whether these airlines are good or bad, but it's important to know. And it has to do with the number of complaints that airlines get. Now, airlines are an easy target. Let's call it what it is. And I mean, that's unfortunately when folks are traveling, it's very easy to get disrupted. It's very easy for flights to be delayed. It's very easy for flights to be canceled. And there's nothing the airline can do about it. I mean, if there's a huge storm over Dallas, Texas, they're probably, and they need to shut down the airport temporarily for safety reasons. Well, that's probably going to disrupt a whole bunch of things because Dallas also is a hub for American Airlines. By the way, American Airlines, ticker symbol Alpha Alpha Larry AAL, not a recommendation to buy or sell or hold the stock there. But they're probably going to be disruptions all over the country because it's a hub. So it's all these things outside of their control. So it's not me looking down on them or holding them up unnaturally, but I am looking at the number of complaints, and these are complaint numbers that have actually been around now for a couple of years, meaning that there's been some repetition in the names associated with them. So the most complaints here back in 2023, so this was just last year, Frontier Airlines, Frank, Roger, Oscar, Nancy, publicly traded company, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock there for Frontier. Frontier is a lower cost airline, has some very specific routes associated with it and some very specific rules associated with it as well. When I say very specific rules, I mean, you may look at the price of a ticket and say, boy, that looks like something I'd like to get. It's a lot less expensive, but then they might have rules for carry-on bags, for checked bags. They may have all kinds of other rules which may add to the cost of your actual flight. So important to keep those kinds of things in mind. Doesn't make them right or wrong, good or bad, just different in terms of how they're coming at things. So the most complaints, Frontier Airlines, the fewest complaints last year. These two were pretty close, so I included them together here as I was doing my research. Alaska Air, so ALK, Alpha Larry Kelly, also publicly traded. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Alaska Air. Fewest number of complaints. When we're talking about fewest number, we're not talking about gross numbers. We're talking about the number of complaints per 100,000 passengers. That way you get kind of an apples to apples comparison, right? It's not purely apples to apples, but it's certainly closer than just the number of complaints, because with bigger airlines, you're going to have more complaints. With smaller airlines, fewer complaints. So these are the complaints per 100,000 passengers that utilize the airline. So Alaska Airlines, they're the fewest complaints. Right next to them, Southwest Airlines, LUV, one of the most interesting ticker symbols that's out there. LUV, Larry Umbrella Victor. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Southwest Airlines, but pretty close there to Alaska Airlines in terms of the fewest complaints out there. Now, again, coming back to it, I mean, with regards to the whole airline industry, really, really tough. And you don't have to believe me. Look at the number of airlines which have declared bankruptcy through the years, including some of our legacy carriers. As one who travels a lot to Western Pennsylvania, specifically the Pittsburgh airport, U.S. Air a number of years ago. I mean, they had a hub there. And they were one of the largest, actually, they were top three largest employers in the region. And then for several different reasons, they had to declare, actually a couple times, they had to declare bankruptcy. And boy, was that just destructive and damaging to the region, not only in terms of employment, but also folks who had pensions and other kinds of benefits through the airline. Very, very challenging. And so it's not just the smaller airlines which have suffered with this, but the legacy carriers as well have had spaces where they've had to declare bankruptcy or they've had to go through big reorganizations. It's a brutal business. It's very, very price sensitive for the most part. Outside of some business travelers traveling on corporate accounts, it is very, very price sensitive. Meaning that it's hard to raise prices, generally speaking, and to maintain the same number of passengers coming through the gates. And so it's really hard. I mean, costs go up constantly. You're dealing with variables that are completely outside of your control, whether you're talking about everything from the cost of fuel to put into the plane to the weather. I mean, the weather is obviously completely outside of your control, and there are only so many things you can do to avoid it. So it's a brutal business, and that's my opinion, but a brutal business, and how you put it together and actually make a sustaining profit model associated with it. I'm just glad I'm not in that business, because I don't know how you could possibly maintain it with any consistency with so many variables that are outside of your control. But very, very interesting. Again, we're in the height of the travel season here. Boy, have you utilized Charlotte Airport, and what do I say? Pittsburgh Airport as well was there recently. They're undergoing a big renovation there also, and they're even telling folks, if you're taking some of those early flights, get there 2 or 3 hours in advance. And they're right. The lines are outrageous trying to get through the security spaces there. You probably have had that that kind of experience. And especially if you've gone to one of the hot spots here in the country, here in the Southeast, if you're going to Orlando, the whole Disney World experience there may be the happiest place on earth, but it's certainly not the happiest way to get there in terms of the flying experience, because so many people are heading that same direction. All right, folks, we're going to hear from our sponsors again. Appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Hang with us here on WSIC as we come back for the second half.
More of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi is coming up on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, the break in humidity was nice, but it definitely was short. It's already working its way back in as we go into this evening. Overnight, a mostly clear sky. It gets muggy again as temperatures fall into the mid-70s. Outlying spots and farms could even see low 70s waking up. Showers or downpours, even thunderstorm possible on our Friday. Mostly cloudy sky, high temperatures in the mid and upper 80s. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
If you're ready for a rewarding career, the team at Horn Heating and Air Conditioning is hiring. Great pay, great benefits, and a great team atmosphere. Experience the feeling of HornHVAC.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
The Statesville Family YMCA reminds you that older adults and those with chronic health conditions don't need to feel they must accept impaired balance and limited mobility. Build strength, improve balance, and gain confidence in your mobility through the Moving for Better Balance program. For questions and additional information, email C. Mullins at ymcanwnc.org.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Would you like to change your health situation? Improve your current health with a wellness consultation with me, Fred Lowry, pharmacist and doctor of natural medicine. I'll work with you to reach your individual goals. This includes a review of your current medications, supplements, diet, and lifestyle choices. This is a progressive way to improve your current health position for your future. Great for individuals or couples wanting to make improvement. Call me at Lowry Drug in Statesville, 704-873-2247.
The school year may have ended, but WSIC's Teacher of the Month contest is still in session. Head to WSICnews.com to vote for your favorite teacher. Winners receive prizes from Nina's Boutique and Brighter Smiles.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Just minutes to go ahead of Wall Street's closing bell, and there'll be no record highs today. Stocks instead on track to end the day mostly lower, sharply lower. Right now, the Dow managing to hang on to a very small gain. The tech-heavy NASDAQ, though, down over 300 points, 1 3/4%, and the S&P down 0.75%. That's because of good news about inflation last month. Consumer prices in June up by just 0.1% from May, the smallest increase in 3 years, thanks to falling rents, cheaper auto prices, and lower gasoline costs. But that disinflation is sending yields on bonds lower. That's hitting the tech sector hard. AI chipmaker NVIDIA shares down nearly 5%. Meta Platforms and Netflix both down 4%. Shares of Tesla down more than 8%. It again delayed the unveiling of its highly anticipated robo-taxi from August now to October. And the average rate on a 30-year mortgage fell slightly this week to 6.89%, according to Freddie Mac. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
It's Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much. Hanging with us here, second half of today's show, Football Reference. Appreciate you hanging with us here. We were talking about all kinds of things. We were coming into some of those things that have to do with Social Security, important stuff, talking about the airlines. If you're traveling at all in this season, it's, man, go with a little bit of grace. Go. What's the chief say? Put your patient pants on a little bit. You really got to do that because it's probably going to be a little bit challenging. There are fewer flights, and we're getting smushed in there as tight as we can go on that. Everybody's in the same boat, I mean, well, plane, I guess in this instance, and so going with a little bit of grace certainly can't hurt. So make sure that you're doing that here. So all right, let's get into the second half here. I feel like I got to talk about food. I mean, it's been probably 15 minutes since we've talked about food here on Dollars and Cents, so let's go ahead and get into it. Chipotle. Chipotle is a group we've talked about several times here on Dollars and Cents. And Chipotle, publicly traded company, Charlie Mary Green is the ticker symbol. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold. Chipotle stock, we talk about them primarily because of their popularity. They are not only in the stock market, stock exchange, end of the universe, are they popular, but certainly in terms of their public retail appeal, number of locations that they have, how fast they've grown. It would be hard to disagree about their popularity and growing popularity that we've seen here over the last number of years. But there's been some discussion. Now, this is not unique just to Chipotle. I've seen this across the board. We've talked about this with other especially quick serve restaurant, QSR style restaurants. Just talking about the challenge of the relationship between the price of what you're paying and what you're actually receiving. And you can actually say that this is true, and actually I would say it is absolutely true, also for experiences in the grocery store, about what you pay, what you actually pay, and then what you actually receive. Because the relationship there isn't always very easy to track. And there has been some, let's call it speculation. I don't have any hard data here, but I've seen this in a number of instances now with regards to observational experience from others, not my own, but observational experience of others, talking about the variance in the, I'm going to call it just the pure weight. I guess that's really have to talk about Chipotle, right? If you've ever been to Chipotle, if you haven't been to Chipotle, this isn't going to make any sense to you. But the actual weight of the food that you receive, because at least in my experience, they don't go light on the portions. I mean, they really don't. I mean, you get a generous helping of whatever you ordered. Whether you're talking about the stuffing in a burrito or one of those bowls that they have, I mean, there's a lot going on there. However, there is some concern, and I say there is some concern. This is public sentiment that's out there. You don't have to search all that hard in order to find it. That there is some variance in terms of the weight of what you actually receive, meaning that every chicken burrito that you order is not necessarily the same chicken burrito. Now, to be fair, I gotta hold these guys out because they are scientific in terms of their ability to replicate almost exactly each and every time that they produce something. That's McDonald's. If you look at McDonald's, you get a cheeseburger at McDonald's in San Francisco, you get a cheeseburger at McDonald's in Washington, D.C., it's going to be almost exact. I don't care who's touching it. I don't care. It doesn't matter if it's a big one, a small one. It's going to be, I mean, within literally just fractions of a percentage, it's going to be exactly the same thing. And so that's McDonald's. MC Mary Charlie Daniel, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold McDonald's, but they're known for that. They're known for that ability to be able to, that when you walk into a McDonald's, you know what you're going to get no matter what. And so some concern about some locations for Chipotle. And I'm chuckling because we're not talking about small portions here. Even the ones that I read about, it's not like I didn't think they were getting skimped all that much. We're still talking about a lot of food here. But I guess if you've had an experience where you got a tremendously large amount of food in your portion previously, that you'd have some concern about it. So maybe a request for more uniformity with regards to what you're spending. Now, I also have to say, and I've said this about Chipotle, I've said it about McDonald's, I've said it about, oh goodness, any number of other QSR, Olive Garden, the Darden Restaurants Group, I've talked about it with them. The hard relationship right now between what their input cost is, how much it costs for them to buy the raw product that they need to do in order to prepare, in order to serve it to you, and the prices that they can charge. And Chipotle, for example, I believe, and this is just my observational experience, I want to say they're in the neighborhood of 6 menu price increases in the last 3 years, basically since 2021. So right around 6 menu price increases, or prices that they've increased across the board on their menu in the last 3 years. It's a lot. That's a lot of increase. Even if they're small increases each time, you put 6 of them together, that's probably going to be a notable increase. But they're not alone. It's not just them. It is the McDonald's of the world. It is the Olive Gardens of the world. Red Lobster, told you they had to declare their parent, the group that owns them, has had to declare bankruptcy because they didn't charge enough for all you can eat shrimp. And I'm chuckling because literally that's true. They started out by charging $20 for all you can eat shrimp. There were so many people that were buying them. They're literally creating shrimp shortages. Not making this up, folks. Check it out. It's online, so it must be true. They raised the price to $25. Still didn't dampen demand, so they had to stop it altogether. And was one of the factors in being and having to declare bankruptcy. So I'm saying this to say it's a very serious issue. I'm chuckling about it here because we are talking about food, but it is a very, very brutal business. Very, very challenging to manage well. When you're talking about the prepared food business, whether you're talking about it in your grocery stores, whether you're talking about it in the restaurant business, anybody who's been in the bar business, hospitality business, restaurant business knows that. It's brutal. It is very, very hard to manage well, and especially hard to manage well over an extended period of time. So it'll be interesting to see if Chipotle addresses that. Kind of interesting to see that observationally. I got to bring something in. It's a correlation to that. And it's because it's so popular right now. This news was breaking as I was coming into the studio today, as at the time of this live broadcast, or if you happen to be listening to this podcast, that Pfizer, so Pfizer, publicly traded company, been around for a long time. Paul Frank Edward, PFE is the ticker symbol, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold, announced today that they're going to be coming out with an oral intake weight loss drug. And I say that, and they actually called it that. I looked at the press release very specifically to see if they actually called it a weight loss drug, and they did, which I thought was interesting because these other ones, these GPL1s that have come out here recently, were prescribed for other reasons initially, and now have been looked at for other reasons because of their ability to help some folks in the weight loss process. Now, I am not a doctor. I am not in the pharmaceutical business. Obviously, it's not a recommendation to take a look at anything that's coming from me here with regards to looking at these, but they are incredibly popular right now. Let me give you some quick numbers. Right now, just in the, and I'm going to call them the weight loss drug business. I'm not talking about the over-the-counter stuff. That's an entirely separate segment altogether. These are prescription drugs that are tuned towards, I can't say that they're the reason that they're being prescribed. That would be inappropriate for me to say that. But they are tuned towards the weight loss experience. $50 billion already. $50 billion already. And the 5-year expected trajectory, $100 billion. $100 billion business that for all intents and purposes didn't exist 3 years ago. I mean, just unbelievable in terms of the amount of revenue generation that's in this arena right now. And I'm looking at the Ozempic. So most folks have seen the commercials that are out there. Eli Lilly's really leading the charge. Their stock price shows it with regards to how much it has increased here. Eli Lilly's stock is Larry Yellow, LLY, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold on Eli Lilly, but they've certainly been at the front. Novo Nordisk, NVO, also not a recommendation to own, buy, or sell. Novo Nordisk, but have really been at the front to this point here over the last couple of years. Now Pfizer looking to get in the mix. Very interesting to see it. I mean, it's a found market by and large. I understand why there would be intense desire by other pharmaceutical companies to be a participant in that, because it's not as though they're fighting for a market that already exists. This is a market that basically is organically developing, and so we're going to watch that very closely. Huge market that's sitting out there, and it's something again that we're going to take a good look at, because it absolutely not only economically is going to affect things, but it's going to affect things like we were talking about with restaurants, with the grocery experience. It's going to be very interesting to see what the long-term ramifications of that are. I'm going to be watching it again. All right, let's keep going here. We're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to talk about estate planning. I'm going to close this segment, and we're going to get into the fourth segment just before I talk about the markets. I know you're hanging around for the markets. I'll get to it. I promise. You know I always do. But I want to talk about estate planning here for just a few moments, and I want to bring up a very popular name, at least in my end of the demographic arena, Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett unfortunately passed away here recently. Marvelous musician, if you like that kind of music. Obviously, you know that I probably do if I'm using those kinds of words to describe him. But the real reason why I'm bringing it up is, unfortunately, among his 4 children now, there is a lawsuit. This is public news. This is not some kind of background kind of data. But there's a lawsuit among the 4 children now, specifically with regards to the administration of his estate. And I say that because estate management is the estate planning process, naming beneficiaries, having a will, making sure that you have those things lined up in ways that you desire, because life changes as well. So important to make those pivots and adjustments. Huge part of what we do at North Main Financial Group. Big, big deal. And we're addressing it all the time. It's the kind of thing that is absolutely needs to be a part of your annual review. Sort of thing. So we're talking. This is the what to know segment here. We're talking about estate planning. Talking about management of your beneficiaries. Very, very important. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes here in the fourth quarter of today's Dollars and Cents show. Also here, presented by North Main Financial Group. Appreciate you hanging with us, folks, through the first three quarters. We're going to take a break. Hear from our sponsors. Hang with us here on WSIC.
More of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi following these brief messages on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, the break in humidity was nice, but it definitely was short. It's already working its way back in as we go into this evening. Overnight, a mostly clear sky. It gets muggy again as temperatures fall into the mid-70s. Outlying spots and farms could even see low 70s waking up Friday morning. Not really going to end our drought, but a chance for a couple of showers or downpours, even thunderstorm possible on our Friday. Mostly cloudy sky, high temperatures in the mid and upper 80s. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Thursday, July 11th, Untethered Soul makes their Langtree Live debut. The band is a unique, creative, soulful reimagination of the music that shaped American culture. Grab your chairs and head to Langtree in Mooresville for the 7 p.m. performance of Untethered Soul with frontman Nick Prestia. This Friday, Trailers of the East Coast in Mocksville present the Wilson Strong Cookout. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., stop by for a barbecue plate and sides in support of Matt Wilson. We'll see you at Trailers of the East Coast in Mocksville this Friday to support Matt with the Wilson Strong Cookout. On Friday, Envision rocks Liberty Park in downtown Mooresville. This first-class dynamic vocal group delivers a high-energy stage show complete with professional choreography and silky smooth harmonies. Liberty Park in downtown Mooresville welcomes you to the Envision concert on Friday night. The Kane Center for the Arts Week 5 of summer camps begins Monday, July 15th. Morning and afternoon camps for ages 4 to 15 include ceramics, drawing, painting, mosaic, mixed media art, and more. The Davidson Community Players present Footloose the Musical on August 8th, 9th, and 10th. For more information on summer camp programs and the theater schedule and tickets, visit canearts.org. That's CAIN arts.org. The Cookout Summer Shootout Series heats up the track each week at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The 10-race series night number 8 is on Tuesday, July 16th. Visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for tickets, details, and information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Making your money make sense. Dollars and Cents with CFP Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much hanging with us here into the fourth quarter. Football Reference, 11 minutes, 58 seconds till you get to that 5 o'clock bell, and I appreciate you hanging with us here as you make the sprint run towards the end of the day. If you're a 9 to 5, or if you're a shift person, I got to say that because I talk to a lot of you folks who work shift work as well. You're like, it doesn't apply to me. I know. So if you're just starting at the end of things here, or you may be just an hour or two into it, especially if you're working evenings, that we appreciate you spending the time with us here. And producer Joe reminded me, I forgot about this. Today is 7-Eleven Day, Slushy Day. If you're one who frequents a 7-Eleven and you like those icy slushies, especially if you're in about 90% of the country right now, you probably would enjoy one because of how hot it is outside. But it's that time of the year, and 7-Eleven certainly a fun day. I think about the folks that I know who have birthdays on 7-Eleven. I think that's kind of, interesting, right? And I learned from Pat, who, by the way, is the host of our home ad show here, 9 to 11, Monday through Friday, here on WSIC, that the official mic check day is December the 12th. Didn't realize that. And in case you're wondering why in the world is it December the 12th, well, because it's 1212. I'm just going to pause on that for a moment. I loved it. I mean, it must be a radio thing. All right. So I thought it was great. Whenever he said it, I literally chuckled out loud. And you're probably staring at your radio right now, wondering why in the world we're talking about that. That's okay. A little freedom here on dollars and cents. Let's sprint through fourth quarter. As we were talking about just before we went to break there, we were talking about Tony Bennett, one of the great performers of all time. Music has been around literally for multiple decades. Very, very popular. Passed away, unfortunately, here recently. And I brought up something that wasn't particularly flattering. It is public record, unfortunately. But talking about how some of the siblings, so he has 4 children, and there is a lawsuit between some of the siblings and the sibling who is the executor of his estate. And as is often the case with these kind of things, has to do with the valuation of the estate and how it is to be paid out to the siblings and to other entities in there, without getting too granular in the details. Now, what is somewhat unique, it's when I say somewhat unique, not because it's completely unique, but because it's not true for everybody. But for someone like Tony Bennett, when it comes to estate management, and it's not because I know Tony Bennett personally, but because of I do have clients and have had clients who are in the music business, that when it comes to a music library, or when it comes to name, image, likeness, NIL kinds of things with a famous performer, the revenue generation for that estate can last years, decades, sometimes even in perpetuity. And you don't have to believe me, I'm going to bring up another name for which that has absolutely been the case, and that's Elvis Presley. So Elvis Presley has been dead now for multiple decades, but his name, his likeness, image and likeness, his music, the royalties on his music still generate millions of dollars a year for the estate. And so there's still an administrative aspect of things. You know, where does that money go? Who benefits from it? Where is it? And there's when there's good planning, that kind of detail is highlighted. And it's somewhat unique. It's not true for most of us, unless you are a famous entertainer, which you might be if you're listening. If you are, call us here at WSIC 844-788-3464 into the studio. Just making sure you're paying attention. But there are some uniquenesses when it comes to an estate like Tony Bennett's estate about how it gets administered, not only up front, but also for the long term. So, and I say that, yes, to highlight because it is news, not because I want to dwell on the negativity that comes with a contested estate, but rather to remind you, and this is the what to know aspect of things, rather to remind you, and for me and for all of us, about how important it is, regardless of how simple or complex your estate is, to make sure that you have some instructions. And they don't have to be complex or glamorous or anything along those lines. They just need to be clear. And so let's talk about something that most of us have. So most of us have some level of retirement account, right? You got a 401k, you got an IRA, a Roth IRA. A lot of folks have that kind of thing. Make sure that you have a beneficiary noted on it. Specifically, you pass away, where do you want it to go? And to whom do you want it to go? That's very, very important, because if you don't choose that, someone else, I promise, is going to choose that for you. And it may be someone you know, or maybe somebody you don't know who's making that kind of choice. So make sure on those kinds of things, life insurance policies, make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. Check it once a year. I know it's not glamorous or exciting, but life changes. And you sure don't want to have somebody on there that you would prefer not to have on there, because after you pass away, unfortunately, almost completely irrevocable. I say almost completely because every once in a while somebody brings me an exception. But generally speaking, it's irrevocable after you pass away. So make sure you're taking a look at that kind of thing. Life insurance policies, annuities, retirement accounts. Make sure you have beneficiaries listed on there. And for things outside of that, make sure you have a will. Again, it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be the kind of thing that has voluminous amounts of data associated with it. It could be, leave it all to WSIC. You could do that, actually. I'd have a conflict of interest in saying that. I can't say that. Again, I'm just making sure you're paying attention here. What can be a little bit of a dry subject, but is very, very important. So you want to make sure you're taking a look at those kinds of things in the will. To whom do you want your things to go? Whether it's a piece of property, whether it's a car, whether it's personal effects, jewelry, art, other kinds of valuables that you may have. It's so much easier, so much easier when those directions are laid out distinctly. I know I've talked about this before here on Dollars and Cents, but I got to bring it up again. I saw the Tony Bennett story. I've had other conversations with folks. It's a simple kind of thing, but it's something that often gets overlooked. And that's why I'm bringing it up here. That's why I want to be sure that it's on your radar screen. You make sure here on the What to Know segment that you're paying attention to that at least once a year. Doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process. Just make sure that you're giving attention to it. All right, I promised you. Markets. My goodness, second half of the year, we're into the second half of the year. First half of the year behind us, as measured by our most popular indices, pretty robust, I'd have to say, across the board. The only major segment, the only major sector, the ones that get most often mapped by our most popular indices, real estate was the only one that was negative in the first half of this year. I've talked a lot about commercial real estate investment trusts, publicly traded real estate investment trusts, which are starting to feel the effects of higher than average vacancies, and we're starting to see that in some of the stock prices of those companies that are publicly traded. So that's probably the easiest explanation for why the real estate sector among publicly traded companies was negative in the first half of this year, but pretty much everything else across the board showing some level of green arrow. Again, not every sector, but most of the big ones that are most commonly tracked showing a green arrow. Now, that can mean all kinds of things. You can look at things like, let's say, oil and energy sector. You're looking at 3, 4, 5% pretty much across the board in terms of most of the indices that track the oil and energy sector. Very, very good for our first half. I mean, certainly on an annualized rate, that's a wonderful rate of return, at least in my end of the world, for any kind of sector, and certainly that sector. But it pales in comparison to some of the more aggressive end of the market, specifically the technology sector in the first half of this year. You've heard me talk about this a lot. Very, very positive, not with every company, but with many companies in the technology sector, especially our largest technology companies. I'm looking at Amazon. I'm looking at Apple. I'm looking at Meta. I'm looking at Alphabet. I'm looking at NVIDIA. I'm looking at, again, all of these companies that comprise so much now of the indices that are tracked, and unfortunately of a lot of the funds, and I say unfortunately, a lot of the funds and hedge funds that are out there, because that tends to be how the market moves. When things are very, very positive in a particular sector, there gets to be a lot of fear of missing out on that performance. So you see a lot of funds and hedge funds that begin to load up on that kind of thing. That's kind of what we're seeing right now. So I'm saying all of that to say, you've heard, I know I'm the I sound like the glass half empty guy. I'm not the glass half empty guy. I really am the glass half full kind of guy. But you want to be careful. You really do. You want to be careful. You especially want to be careful if you're looking to buy into the things which have done so incredibly well. That's not to say that they aren't going to continue to appreciate. I'm not saying that. Heard that from someone else last week where you're saying it's all going down. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are averages out there when you look at the last 70 years of market performance. There are averages. And when we run above the average for a sustained period of time, there has to be a time at some point when we run below the average for some measure of time in order to get, wait for it, the average. All right? I'm not making this up. This is math, right? And then folks say, well, the average can change. Absolutely, it can change. It changes all the time, actually, because the inputs to the algorithm change all the time. However, when we are running substantially above or substantially below the average, I'm not talking about being close to the average, but being substantially above or below the average, well, from a technical standpoint, we're going to be due at some point. We're going to be due for a correction. We're going to be due for an adjustment. It has to happen at some point. What's that measure going to be? How big is it going to be? I have no idea. Nobody does. When is it going to happen? Sorry, don't have that either. If you're coming here looking for those exact answers, I'm not your guy. But what we do know is that it's going to happen. And that's why we're cautious with folks. That's why we implore that folks just be cautious in their decision making. It becomes so tempting. You heard me just say, and if you're watching me on the socials here or you're watching me on the WSIC app, which, by the way, if you don't have the WSIC app, get over to the Google Store, get over to the Apple Store, make sure you download it. What a great way to be able to listen to us here on WSIC, especially if you're traveling. Great to have that there, easy to connect kind of thing. But if you're watching me, you can see that my body language isn't all that positive with regards to funds that chase after the hot things, but it happens every single time. Every time. It is as predictable as the sun rising and setting. It is amazing. And it's happening again, that we're seeing funds that are loading up on that which has been hot, that which has been the things that have been appreciating the most in the market most recently. Happens every time. Now, does that mean those things are going down? No, not necessarily. Not saying that that's going to be the case, but it certainly has a higher probability of pullback than some other places in the market. So that's why I'm saying that. Just be cautious. Now, what does that mean for the balance of the year? I don't see, folks, a lot of substantially fundamental negative things out there. My concerns are more on a technical level at this point. Certainly we're seeing inflation moderate. The Federal Reserve Board chair came out this week and was a whole lot more was suggestive than what I would have thought about the possibility for rate cuts. Can't say I agree with that. That'll be a discussion for next week's show. But interesting that he's along those lines. So we're going to be watching that very closely. Well, friends, as always, appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Appreciate your attention to all these topics that are important, things happening around us, and appreciate you also tuning in to us here at WSIC. Come back to us next week at 4 o'clock as we again dive into all things financial on Dollars and Cents.
Serving you better.